Does the name George Floyd ring any bells? If it doesn't, then let me tell you that he was the African American who was brutally killed under police custody. Did you know that according to research by Pew, 65% of Black Americans say the increased national attention on racial inequality has not led to changes that improve their lives, and 44% say equality for Black people in the United States is not likely to be achieved. Hello everyone, and welcome back to World IQ. Today, we will be going over a topic that has plagued America for a very long time. This video is about the 10 most racist cities in the US. In determining which cities have the highest level of racism, we've examined the personal experiences shared by many and analyzed the history, the stats of hate crimes, racial disparities, and the economic statistics of each city. Remember that not everyone living in these cities is racist to their very core. It's just that racist neighbors outnumber the good ones. Let's get it. Number 10. Danville, Illinois. During the 1800s and early 1900s, there were quite a lot of racially motivated riots and street fights that led to far too many deaths. This was due to the high tensions in the rapidly growing majority African American city. The biracial Readjuster Party had taken control of the city council in 1882. Many white citizens felt threatened socially, politically, and economically, and pushed to attack Readjuster's rule and targeted African Americans. Fast forward to today, racism is still present in Danville. Around May 2022, a group of protesters displayed White Lives Matter signages the same day that a gunman allegedly fueled by racism was involved in a mass shooting that injured 13 people in a supermarket located in a predominantly Black neighborhood. The stats and figures also tell a very obvious sign of racism here. They have one of the widest gaps between white and Black residents in terms of education, income, and health in the entire state. 75% of all white families in Danville are homeowners, and only 31% of Black families own their homes. It gets worse. 20% of their white population live below the poverty line, while the Black residents have a percentage share of nearly 50%. If this doesn't convince you, maybe a story of a person of color that they posted on TripAdvisor can help you change your mind. Quote, "They stole my $150 deposit and told us our kind wasn't welcome. Very rude workers, very racist, and need to be shut down. If you ask me, I will never ever stay at this location in Danville, Illinois again, and am going to file a lawsuit." End quote. I guess Danville needs to do a lot of changes to make their city more welcoming and inclusive. Alright, number 9, Rochester, New York. Frederick Douglass, a former slave who became an abolitionist, an orator, a publisher, and a resident in Rochester in 1847, is well known for his associations with the city. The first African American neighborhood in Rochester was created on High Street, which eventually became Clarissa Street, by emancipated Blacks living in Western New York as early as 1810. The community was situated in the 3rd Ward. During the Great Depression, general unemployment was 40%, and among Blacks, 70%, but they were able to keep their families together. Fast forward to how well we're doing today, it's gotten better because we don't have Black slaves like we used to, but there's still a long way to go to achieve equality. According to Rochester's statistical data, the racial disparities in the city grow deeper than in New York and the US as a whole. It's not just African Americans who are on the losing end, but also Latinos. African American children are 4 times more likely to be in poverty, and Latinos are more than 3.5 times compared to white children. The racial disparities are just alarming, and it manifests in the life expectancy of residents. The figure from research conducted by Community Foundation in Monroe County says that if you're Black, your chances of dying before 65 are 46%, 52% if you're Latino, but only 26% if white. Well, it's no surprise that they made it on our list. Number 8. Fresno, California. Did you know that in 2022, 103 hate and anti-government groups were tracked in California? In the same year, Southern Poverty Law Center documented 1,225 hate and anti-government extremist groups across the US. Something about these facts doesn't seem right, right? Fresno is under hot water for all the wrong reasons, and we can back it up with ugly data. Over the last 2 decades, more than 3/4 of the reported hate-driven crimes, which looks like 268 out of 355 incidents, have been perpetrated in Fresno. The majority of these crimes were fueled by racism. People of color residing in Fresno all share the same story of the racial divide that's plaguing their city. To support this claim, Alan Autry, a former mayor of Fresno, used the term "a tale of two cities" to describe the alarming differences between North Fresno's white population and the South's communities of color in terms of income, economic investments, property value, and quality of life. 13.76% of white people live below the poverty line, compared to the Black population of 33.19% and 28.02% of the Hispanic. These are numbers we hope to reduce one day. Number 7. Trenton, New Jersey. According to Trenton Historical Society, in 1810, the earliest year in which data on race was reported to the United States Census, Trenton counted 435 African Americans among its more than 3,000 residents. The Black community remained fairly constant as a percentage of the town's total population during the early decades of the 19th century. Historically, Trenton's African American population was scattered in small pockets around the city, rather than concentrated in 1 or 2 large neighborhoods. Today, in 2023, the number of African Americans living here is more than 40,000. Unfortunately, this city is named 7th most racist city in all of America. They have a similar George Floyd story, only this time it was Hajuan Henderson, 29, of Burlington City, New Jersey. He was shot and paralyzed by police officers from the Trenton Police Department while grabbing an iced tea from a car. The kind of racism that exists in Trenton now manifests itself in systemic racism. You know all about that, right? Housing, employment, and healthcare, and all the prejudices and unfair treatment. It's all just sad and terrible. Number 6. Peoria, Illinois. There are a lot of racist incidents here. Ashley Daly Stiegel erected plywood to protect her clothing store from looting that followed after the peaceful protests over the killing of George Floyd. There was also an assistant fire chief who gained negative attention for using a racial slur on camera, and the president of an indigenous insurance company who was caught in hot water for making racist posts on Facebook about the Super Bowl halftime performance. It's fairly easy to believe that racism is happening a lot in Peoria. Similar to other racist cities, the divide between the white population and people of color is much more evident. Blacks are more likely to be in low-income neighborhoods. Only 32% of Black residents own their homes, compared to 76.1% of white residents. We're seeing some good news though. Rita Ali is the first woman and person of color to be elected as mayor of Peoria last April 2021. It came at a time of high tension in the rapidly growing majority African American city. According to Peoria City's website, Dr. Ali spearheaded efforts to establish ICC's first international center. She launched a comprehensive, aggressive strategy to effectively recruit and retain students of color in college. She also supported the Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity, an organization founded to promote racial justice and equity within the county and city governments. At least we're seeing some progress here. Number 5. Racine, Wisconsin. The racial bias in the criminal justice system is a problem in the US, but it's more obvious in Racine. Black residents are 12 times more likely to land in prison than white residents. It also doesn't seem like the whites commit fewer crimes. You can also see this in the education system. High schoolers are also deeply affected that nearly every year, students of color that attend the Racine Lutheran High School unveil the horrible truth that they have been harassed and dehumanized. Wisconsin Public Radio says that a group of Southeast Wisconsin community and civil rights organizations have called on Racine Lutheran High School to take action after reports of students being harassed based on their race, incidents of hateful language and vandalism, and what they say is the school administration's failure to fix an ongoing racially hostile environment. However, efforts in combating this are not as effective. Black families make around $27,000, which is significantly less than half of the $63,000 average income of white families. Number 4. Naperville, Illinois. Did you notice that this is Illinois' third entry on the list? It makes you wonder, what are people eating for them to be so racist? And again, not everyone is. It's just that there are really a lot of them. There are too many of them that in 2019, some black customers of Naperville Buffalo Wild Wings were directed to move to a different table by an employee because a white person felt uncomfortable sitting next to them. And they didn't even do anything wrong. The amount of black people living below the poverty line in Naperville is almost 3 times the number of white residents. Alright, before we dive into our last 3, let us know in the comments. Have you experienced any racial incidents while being in these cities or these states? Share them below. The more we talk about them, the more awareness it creates. Here at number 3, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You know, we should just rename this video to the top 2 most racist states in all of America. Because here's another Wisconsin entry. Suffolk University surveyed 500 residents of Milwaukee to rate the city, and as expected, white residents voted excellent and good, while black people, well, you guessed it, poor. It shows that it is the second most segregated city between black and white populations in all of America. In another survey by Suffolk, 61% rate the city's police performance as fair or poor. I'm just going to say this out loud. The policing in America surely needs some straightening out to do. I mean, just look at the stats, guys. Police violence is happening everywhere, not just in Milwaukee. Racism has become systemic and structural in the sense that it affects all areas of life, and you feel most of it when you're a person of color. This can be observed in maternal and infant mortality rates, education levels, and employment opportunities. Top 2. Harrison, Arkansas. The description of the city is pretty gnarly if you ask me. Previously known as a sundown town, black Americans face the threat of death if they were outside after dusk. They're either the most racist city or the second most racist city. According to the Encyclopedia of Arkansas, the Harrison race riots of 1905 and 1909 drove out all but one African American from Harrison, Boone County, and violently established an all-white enclave, akin to other such sundown towns in northern and western Arkansas, while being far less violent than previous race riots across the state. Harrison has maintained the legacy of its ethnic cleansing in terms of demographics and reputation throughout the 20th century and into the 21st century due to the proximity of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan headquarters. Even though we're already in 2023, A drive around here would make you feel like you're in 1844 because, according to census figures, 94.3% of Harrison residents are white. It doesn't look good for other people of color because they're more likely to live below the poverty line. It's a good thing, though, that the government and well-meaning citizens are cooperating with the Harrison Community Task Force on Race Relations to address the growing concern about racism. And our top one, Waterloo, Iowa. In 2018, in a study conducted by 24/7 Wall Street on income, unemployment, and homeownership along racial divides, Waterloo is ranked the worst city for Black Americans to live in. The statistics here are not as great, since the unemployment for Black people is over 5 times that of white unemployment. Furthermore, 73.2% of white residents own their homes in Waterloo, while only 32.8% of Black residents own theirs. It's not safe for Black people. It's very easy for racist people to throw racial slurs, and it did happen during an East High School girls basketball game at Dubuque-Wahlert Catholic School. This just shows how deep racial bias has embedded itself in the school system. Alright everyone, that's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in to World IQ. I hope you learned something new today. What's your racist experience or story? Share them below. We need to let the world know that it needs to change. Let us know your thoughts. If you like this video, subscribe and share, and continue expanding your world IQ by checking out the other videos on this channel. See you next time.